Okay, let's unpack this. Picture this. You're hurtling across the Russian landscape
Hmm.
on a bullet train, right?
Yeah.
Clocking in at like 210 kilometers per hour, miles and miles from Moscow.
Wow, fast.
Yeah, really fast. And outside, it's basically the same kind of chilly.
Mm-hmm.
And here's this missionary, probably thankful for his microfleece gloves, except, well, those gloves are making it impossible to type on his laptop.
Oh, I hate that feeling.
Right. And he's scrolling through this Brigada e-newsletter.
Yeah.
The type evangelism tools, news about a business's mission conference, online learning
They
stuff.
did mission updates.
Exactly. But then the publisher's wrap-up note just jumps out. The title is How Tough It Gets, Satanic Attacks.
Whoa. Okay, that's quite a sign off.
Isn't it? Just throws you straight into this unseen side of things, the kind of battles missionaries might face, like right from the get-go.
It's a really stark contrast, isn't it? The modern convenience of the train, the small annoyance of the gloves, and then bam, this heavy ancient idea of spiritual warfare.
Totally. It grabs your attention, shows how unpredictable mission work can be.
Yeah, definitely sets the stage.
And that's exactly what this deep dive is about, really.
Yeah.
For you, someone who wants to get the core insights, quickly but thoroughly without feeling totally overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
We've gone through a bunch of sources, firsthand stories from missionaries, their advice, reflections on everything from like formal seminary training down to these unexpected things like what that newsletter hinted at.
Right.
So our mission today is to really explore these different facets of mission training, help you understand the key things to consider and, well, some of the surprisingly different opinions out there.
And that's crucial because, as we'll see, there really isn't just one path. The sources show this whole spectrum of experiences and approaches.
Exactly. And we've got our expert here to help synthesize all this, give us that broader context.
Happy to be here. It's important to remember, no one-size-fits-all answer when it comes to preparing for mission work. We're aiming to just shed light on those varied views.
Great. So let's dive right into one of those unexpected parts, spiritual warfare.
Okay.
That Brigada newsletter and the missionary's own first experiences really bring it up. He said his first week in Moscow was a, quote, loud wake-up call about spiritual attacks.
So right away.
Yeah. Apparently his counselor there dealt with them all the time. And he uses this image, the feeling on a packed Moscow train, everyone shoving to get off.
Oh, yeah. Intense.
He uses that feeling of pressure, that crowd, to kind of illustrate the unseen pressures of what some call satanic forces.
That's a powerful analogy. It immediately punctures any kind of, romanticized idea of missions. It's not just about culture shock and language barriers. There's often this other dimension that feels very real to people on the ground.
And the newsletter itself mentions these attacks can hit anywhere: kids, spouse, support back home, even core beliefs.
Yeah, it makes it clear it's not just a personal struggle sometimes.
So then, this missionary goes to Nairobi, this town basically centered around a prison. After Moscow, you'd think, okay, this is going to be even heavier spiritually.
You'd expect that, yeah. Maximum security prison town.
But what happens is, well, it's completely unexpected. Instead of despair, they find this thriving Christian group inside the prison.
Inside maximum security.
Yeah. The driver's excited about the chapel renovation. Get this, they're using car jacks to lift parts of it.
Wow. That's incredible. Resourceful.
Isn't it? And they're bringing Bibles to inmates, repeat offenders, guys convicted of really terrible crimes.
Okay.
And then they walk into this prayer room, bright wooden carvings everywhere. And 11 prisoners greet them, smiling. And their first question, how can we get baptized?
That's amazing. What a contrast to what you might expect.
Holy.
It just shows, doesn't it? Even in the absolute bleakest places, you can have these incredible turnarounds, barbed wire and hope side by side.
And it gets even more intense. Suddenly there's this loud music from down the hall. Yeah, these prisoners, the same guys, lead into the cafeteria. About 100 other inmates are there. And then this prisoner band, 2 electric guitars, bass, drums, acoustic guitar, starts playing a song they wrote.
A prisoner band, wow.
Listen to these lyrics. I've been set free from my old sin. My renewed soul now is longing. After I finish my earthly world, I want to enter your eternal peace.
Goodness, that's powerful.
And it closes with, draw me a little house near the spring. Let it flow in freedom like a tiny stream. Draw me the cross that I could take it with me. I've been set free.
Just Incredible. Freedom found inside prison walls, expressed through their own music. That's real redemption in action.
And the big takeaway here, as the source points out, is that mission training, well, it can't just be about the practical stuff.
Right.
It has to prepare people for both the dark spiritual possibilities and these amazing moments of breakthrough and hope.
Absolutely. You need that spiritual resilience, that strong faith foundation to handle the whole spectrum, the tough stuff and the incredible joys. As one reader commented on that newsletter, just knowing spiritual warfare is a possibility can change how you react.
Yeah, good point. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. We'll talk about this big question. Formal training versus learning on the job.
Ah, the classic debate.
Yeah, there seem to be quite a few different opinions. George Verwer's OM's founder, he talks about either thinking versus both hand.
Mm-hmm.
His point is basically, look, people learn differently. And even highly trained people, they still mess up sometimes.
That's such a crucial point. It moves us past thinking there's only one right way. Some people need structure, others thrive by doing, and yeah, mistakes happen regardless of the training level.
He even tells this story about people doing OM short-term trips and then deciding to go get formal Bible training later.
Oh, interesting. So one can lead to the other.
Seems like it. And Jack Volkel jumps in here too, stressing things like perseverance, daily study, Bible reading, prayer, using Operation World for intercession, plus seeking out learning chances like conferences, courses, reading biographies like Ruth Tucker's big mission history book.
Yeah, Volkel offers really practical steps anyone can take, right? It's about continuous learning, deepening your walk with God alongside any formal stuff.
And he really pushes the perspectives course too.
Oh yeah, perspectives. That's a really solid one. Gives that broad overview, the biblical basis, current realities. Highly recommended by many.
Then Thomas Hale adds another layer. He says training isn't just skills, it's about shaping spirit and character.
How so?
Well, like strengthening weak spots, improving attitudes, getting better at problem solving, becoming more adaptable, and just deepening your spiritual life overall.
That's a really holistic view. It's about preparing the whole person, not just stuffing them with information. Internal readiness as much as external skills.
So that leads right into this. Should you ever just skip getting a degree altogether?
Ooh, controversial, maybe?
Maybe. The general advice seems to be don't decide too quickly. Jack Volkel actually argues pretty strongly against skipping a degree easily.
Okay, why is that?
He emphasizes the long-term value of a good education, formal Bible or theology training. But he still says, get involved locally while you're studying.
So he sees it as foundational for long-term effectiveness, really equipping you for the specific challenges. A voice of caution.
But then you hear from Rocco, 30 years on the field. He says even with Bible school degrees, he learned to rely totally on the Holy Spirit. His take is that sometimes God actually has to, deprogram people who have too much formal training and not enough spirit reliance.
That's a fascinating counterpoint. Really highlights dependence on God's leading, doesn't it? Training is good, but it shouldn't replace that direct guidance.
And Lisa offers a more nuanced view. She says whether you need a degree depends on your passion, what you want to do long term. Well, her example is advocating for the poor. Maybe you need legal knowledge for that. She stresses spiritual disciplines, developing your talents, but warns fast can be slow.
Meaning shortcuts in prep might actually hurt your impact later.
Exactly.
That makes sense. Aligning prep with your specific calling. Very practical.
And then Tim just cuts to the chase. Prepare as much as possible, then go.
Love the directness.
Right. But he adds, don't wait until you feel perfectly ready because, well, that might never happen.
That's a good balance.
Yeah.
Prepare well, but don't get paralyzed by waiting for perfection. Step out in faith.
Okay, so what about regular Christians? People without tons of formal training. Can they get involved in missions?
What do the sources say?
Nate Wilson says absolutely yes. God uses the skills you have, motorcycle repair, worship music, serving whatever it is.
That's really encouraging.
Yeah, but the key is you have to be willing to learn new things too.
Of course, a teachable spirit. So your existing skills are valuable, but be ready to grow.
But Jack Volkel comes back with a reminder. Some training is usually needed.
Okay.
Agencies have requirements, right? And everyone, doctor or mechanic, needs to be ready to explain their faith, that 1 Peter 3.15 thing.
Give a reason for the hope that you have. Yeah.
And ministry should be holistic, including, crucially, cross-cultural communication skills.
That makes sense. Accountability to organizations, basic faith grounding, and communication seems like a reasonable baseline for everyone.
Now, what about timing? Before, during, or after college for mission training? Bethany advises against specific missionary training before university.
Really? Why?
She says focus on your unit studies, do short-term trips during breaks, use practical skills like teaching English or even cosmetology to open doors, and get involved in campus Christian groups.
Okay, so build a foundation, use short trips for exposure, makes sense. Secular skills for ministry, campus groups for support.
But then Hannah shares her story. She took a year or two before college for missions.
And how was that?
Really positive. She talks about huge personal growth, stronger faith, feeling way better prepared for discipleship later. She worried about fitting in afterwards, but it was valuable.
Interesting. So that pre-college mission experience gave her a lot of personal and spiritual development.
Yeah.
A different path, but worked for her.
And Mark took a year off during university to serve on a mercy ship.
Ah, the mid-degree break.
Yeah. And he really advocates for trips like that to figure out God's specific leading for you.
So immersive experiences at different stages can all bring clarity. Interesting.
What about spouses? Does the missionary spouse need formal training? David Smith says absolutely yes. Even correspondence courses.
Why does he think it's so important?
Because they will have ministry opportunities, he argues.
Yeah.
And they might get really discouraged without some preparation.
That's a fair point. Spouses often have significant, maybe unofficial ministry roles. Training could definitely help prevent burnout or feeling inadequate.
But on the other hand, Dale Pugh shares that his wife had zero formal training. And she ministered effectively just by being a wife and mother in Mexico, building relationships.
So, again, different paths work. Relational ministry doesn't always require academic credentials, especially in certain roles. It highlights the variety of ways to serve.
So what are the actual avenues for training? Lifelong learning seems to be a big theme, right? Like Jesus growing in wisdom.
Yeah, it's not just a one-and-done thing.
Steve Hoke and Bill Taylor list 5 main options: secular universities, Christian liberal arts colleges, Bible colleges, correspondence study like World Christian Foundations, and Christian grad schools or seminaries.
That covers most bases.
And they stress matching the training to your needs and also the social benefits of these different settings.
Right, learning isn't just academic, it's relational too. Good point.
Tom shares that he prioritized Bible college before university.
Okay, why?
He felt it taught him crucial lessons about faith and following the Spirit that actually helped him succeed in university later and in his current ministry.
So the spiritual foundation from Bible college was key for everything else. Interesting sequence.
Glenn leans more towards a traditional university degree plus Bible skills.
A combined approach.
Yeah, his worry is that just mission training might miss other skills, but no Bible training hurts ministry effectiveness.
Finding that balance makes sense.
Mert's experience was different again. He felt his best education came from being active in church small groups, personal study, prayer, plus mentoring through World Christian Foundations correspondence.
So practical, hands-on church involvement and mentorship were key for him.
Yeah, he really emphasizes service over just getting degrees.
Highlights the value of that local church context for discipleship and learning.
And Ruth's story is pretty amazing. She struggled academically but went to Bible school anyway.
Oh, yeah.
And she found the combination discipleship training, Bible school, internship, on-field training totally transformative.
That's really encouraging for people who aren't natural academics. Shows that different kinds of training experiences can all contribute powerfully.
And Thomas Hale offers this practical tip. If you know you need specific training, get it before you go. If you're unsure, wait till your first furlough.
Why wait?
Because then you'll have firsthand field experience to know what training would actually be most useful.
Ah, that's smart. Let the field experience guide feeder specialization. Good advice.
Okay, so for people facing years of school, how do you keep that mission focus and prepare along the way?
Yeah, how do you stay connected to the call?
Mike has several suggestions. Short-term trips, definitely.
Yeah.
Getting involved with different ethnic groups right where you are.
Cross-cultural experience at home.
Reading mission books and biographies. Talking to actual missionaries.
Yeah.
Taking perspectives.
All good ways to keep learning and stay inspired.
Finding a mentor. And, crucially, avoiding choices that could block missions later, like tons of debt, or marrying someone who isn't supportive.
Ooh, those are practical life choices with big implications. Good call-outs.
Carrie adds to that list. Learn a second language if you can. Befriend international students.
Yeah, building those bridges early.
Keep reading biographies. She names Mary Slessor, Hudson Taylor, others. Stay deep in the Word and prayer. And find local ministry opportunities to discover your gifts.
So cultural learning, language, spiritual disciplines, and practical service, all ongoing prep work.
And Jack Volkel suggests 3 in the meantime things. Volunteer actively in ministry.
Okay.
Integrate faith into your studies, like how does this history class or science course connect to future service? Find those links.
That's interesting, making academics relevant to the call.
And actively seek God's direction, pray, connect with missionaries, go on trips, ask hard questions.
So be proactive in seeking clarity while you're preparing. Makes sense.
Let's talk majors. If you're heading to university with missions in mind, what should you study?
Does it matter?
David Smith suggests practical things.
Huh.
Teaching English, computer tech, good for teaching, or business and limited access places.
Skills that are needed.
Anthropology or general teaching for more open countries. But he also says any degree helps if you're involved in campus Christian groups and learn a language.
So some practical suggestions, but also emphasizing the value of the whole university experience, plus extras.
Jack Volkel thinks you should get broadly trained in something you're genuinely interested in.
Broadly trained.
Yeah, his view is university prepares you for life, not just a job. He likes humanities, history, literature, psychology, anthropology for understanding people and cultures.
Okay, focus on understanding humanity as prep.
Plus, he stresses making diverse friends, mission trips, campus ministry, the practical experiences again.
So a broad education plus hands-on cross-cultural engagement.
And Bethany points out that even a Bible-focused degree is valuable, even in Muslim-majority countries. And universities can be flexible with major names if needed for sensitive areas.
Good point. Don't discount theological training and be creative if needed.
What about grad school? Necessary.
Good question. Advanced degrees.
Volkel says, well, it depends on the work and the context. He usually suggests 2 to 3 years of Bible school or seminary first, focusing on cross-cultural communication.
Especially if you might face resistance as a foreign expert.
Exactly. And he also suggests maybe waiting until after your first term on the field for postgrad studies.
Like Hale's advice earlier, get field experience first to focus your studies.
But David, the doctor in Honduras, he shares a warning about impractical grad degrees.
Oh, what happened?
He emphasizes needing training that's relevant on the ground. For him, it was agriculture that was needed, not necessarily another advanced medical degree.
So align further study with the actual needs you see in the field. Practicality first.
But Rick offers a counterpoint. Grad degrees can be useful.
How so?
For gaining respect locally, sometimes even for getting visas. And you can use that study time for planning and friend-raising, building support.
Okay, so potential practical benefits for credibility and logistics, different angles.
What if you feel called to special needs ministry? Any specific training advice?
Yeah, that's a specialized area.
Phyllis Kilborn recommends social work. She says it's really helpful for understanding trauma and learning project development skills.
That makes a lot of sense. Trauma-informed care is huge.
She also mentions other useful expertise: vocational training, therapies, non-formal education, medicine, music therapy. Lots of possibilities.
So specific skills tailored to the needs of vulnerable populations. Good recommendations.
Sometimes, though, God's preparation is unconventional.
How do you mean?
John Crouch uses that Exodus verse, Exodus 13.2, where God led Israel the long way around.
Avoiding the direct route.
Right. His point is, the things we do willingly, even if they seem unrelated, might be God's best preparation for us, maybe even better than the training we think we need.
Trusting God's roundabout ways. That's a deep thought. Sometimes the detours are the real training ground.
And you have Elizabeth Elliot's famous line, "Never let your education stand in the way of the will of God." Powerful. Steve Hoke also observed that lots of missionaries use their gifts more than their actual degree. The key is listening to God's surprising leading.
So stay open. Don't let your plans or your degree limit what God might want to do through you. Be flexible.
Okay, huge topic. Language learning. Philippians 2.13 says God works in us to will and act. Maybe that includes wanting to learn a language.
Maybe. He gives the desire and the ability.
So, can you be a missionary if you really, really don't want to learn another language?
What's the verdict?
The sources say,
Yes.
technically, there are opportunities with English speakers, globally migrating groups, international business, teaching English. ESL-jobs.com gets mentioned.
So it's possible.
Yes, but there's a strong nudge. Shouldn't you try to learn at least some local language, just out of love for the people?
Yeah, that respect factor. It shows you care enough to try.
Lisa, however, is much stronger on this. She says language is critical for real discipleship, for understanding culture deeply.
So not just possible, but maybe not optimal for deep ministry.
That seems to be her point. She suggests praying for a change of heart if language learning feels like a barrier, but seems necessary for what it's calling you to.
Ask God to help you want to learn it if it's needed. Interesting.
Jim offers some encouragement, though. He found language learning might be easier than you think. Short immersion periods can get you to a basic ministry level.
That's hopeful for people intimidated by it. Doesn't have to take years to start communicating.
Jack Volkel recommends formal language school combined with cultural immersion.
Both together.
Yeah, to get the intellectual side and the cultural nuances. And he warns against jumping into ministry too fast before you have that language grounding.
Build the foundation first. Makes sense.
Mark points out the best way to learn depends on the language itself and your learning style, auditory, visual, analytical.
Right, different methods for different people and languages.
He suggests getting a language aptitude assessment.
Know your strengths. Good idea.
And he contrasts older methods like LAMP memorizing phrases with newer ones using individual language helpers, interacting with a small group of friends.
More relational, conversational approaches seem popular now.
And Elizabeth Elliot, again, with crucial advice. Actively ask people to correct your mistakes. Language, manners, lifestyle, everything.
Ooh, that takes humility.
Totally. And identify with locals whenever possible. She talks about wearing traditional dress in Ecuador.
Be willing to look foolish sometimes, be corrected, and try to bridge that cultural gap. Powerful advice.
Okay, switching to de-stressing culture shock. You know, that feeling of frustration being disoriented in a new place.
Yeah, it's a real thing. How do you handle it?
Jim says thorough pre-field training is key. He mentions Missionary Training International.
MTI, yeah, well known.
Have realistic expectations.
No.
Focus on culture and language first, not jumping into big ministry tasks right away.
Pace yourself.
Intentionally bond with locals. And maybe, just maybe, limit calls home initially to help you adjust.
Ooh, controversial maybe, but could help you engage where you are. Practical tips.
TK talks about pre-field training that specifically covered culture shock.
What did that include?
Things like transitions, worldview differences, ethnocentrism, culture theory, stress management, contextualization, communication skills, managing expectations. Really comprehensive.
Wow, that sounds incredibly helpful, knowing what to expect.
Yeah, understand the culture through reading, observing. Recognize culture shock is a predictable stress reaction. Know your own weak spots, but also your value in Christ.
Ground yourself spiritually while navigating it intellectually.
TK also recommends books, Ministering Cross-Culturally, Cross-Cultural Connections, and the Culture Shock series.
Good resources for digging deeper. That kind of training sounds invaluable.
All right, last section. Things nobody told me.
Ooh, the inside scoop.
Mike wishes he'd had more realistic expectations about missionaries and the work.
How so?
He says presentations often just show the victories. Missionaries hesitate to be vulnerable, get put on a super spiritual pedestal.
Yeah, that pressure must be immense.
And the reality is often indifference or opposition to the gospel, not constant revival. He wants to kill the idea that you're doing a great work for Jesus, independent of God.
So more realism, more humility, acknowledging the struggles, and God's sovereignty. Important correctives.
Kim wishes he'd known more about spiritual warfare beforehand.
Back to that theme.
Yeah. He recommends Neil Anderson's Victory Over the Darkness. He stresses the battle is everywhere, just looks different in different cultures.
So be aware, be prepared. Another vote for spiritual readiness.
And Bethany has a list. Nobody told her about the potential for sheer boredom, especially at first.
Boredom, really?
Yeah. And the importance of self-knowledge. God uses the field to surface your hidden issues.
Ouch. Necessary, but maybe uncomfortable.
The need to be teachable, a lifelong learner, not just figuring it out as you go.
Humility again.
And just how tiring adjusting to a new place is. Give yourself permission to slow down. Missionary work isn't about being superhuman.
That's huge. Permission to be human.
It's about trust, obedience, hearing God's voice, not burnout.
Really valuable, honest reflections there. Things you might not think about until you're in it.
And all this just highlights how dynamic God's leading is, doesn't it? Like Philip in Acts.
Yeah, his role's changed quite a bit.
Starts as a waiter, basically. Then evangelist. Then missionary to the Ethiopian official. Then ministry in Azotus. Constant reassignment.
Which requires ongoing adaptation, ongoing learning.
Exactly. Which brings us right back to the final point. Mission education, mission training. It's a lifelong process.
It never really stops. It's a journey of growth and adaptation as you follow God's lead.
So wrapping up this deep dive, it's pretty clear there's no single blueprint for mission prep.
Definitely not.
We've covered so many paths, the need for spiritual readiness, that whole formal versus practical debate, language, culture, the unexpected stuff.
A huge range.
And for you listening, the right path is going to be personal. It takes seeking God's guidance, thinking about your own philosophy, how you feel about these different approaches, what role you might play.
Yeah, ultimately it's about seeking God, pursuing the training that seems right, formal or informal, and having that humble, adaptable, learning heart.
So considering everything we've talked about, all the experiences and advice, what's one thing about mission preparation that really stands out to you right now? And what's maybe one small next step you could take to explore that a bit more?
Maybe revisiting one of the resources mentioned, like perspectives, or just starting a conversation with a mission agency.
Could be. Lots to think about. We really hope this deep dive gave you a shortcut to understanding just how complex mission training is and offered some surprising ideas and valuable viewpoints for your own journey.